Eyes, underbites, and dry brush painting. Ooh. Alright, so to make this little underbite monster, you're going to need a few things to get started. For the eyes, you're going to need paper, something to color with, some glass beads with the flat backs, and some glue. I like to trace around the eyes or the glass beads before I get started so that I know the general size that I'm going to make them. After I have them traced, I just start filling them in with colors. And I like to do kind of abstract, very textured eyes. I think it adds a little bit to it. And I don't usually just stick to one color. I do a lot of colors. In this one, I'm doing a couple different shades of blue and a couple shades of pink. So, giving yourself some variety. I like to give it a pupil that's pretty dark, so I just use Sharpie for this. And then what you're going to do after you finish the eye is put a small dot of glue right in the middle, and then you lay the glass bead onto it so that the glue spreads all the way out to the edges. And you should still be able to move it around a little bit to get it centered or to where you want it before you press it down. Once you do, it should stick. And then I like to take the excess glue that might have gone underneath it and just kind of wipe away any of the excess so that I don't get glue all over my scissors when I do the next step. You can spray the back of the paper with accelerator and it helps, but it's not necessary. So then I cut around the edges once it's cured, and you have your eyeballs. Super simple. There you have it. Ta-da! Next, what you're going to do is take some type of clay. I like a polymer clay that you bake in an oven. You can also use an air dry clay, but I like the polymer clay, so I use the original Sculpey. It's a little bit more affordable than Super Sculpey or Sculpey 3, and you can get it in a giant box. So I roll out whatever I need. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick, and then I like to press the eyes into the Sculpey a bit, just so that they sink down into the surface. It makes it look a little less bug-eyed. And then make sure that you can actually pick it up off of the table so that you don't have to wait until the end to pick it up, because that might end up ruining whatever designs you make. And then you're going to want to make some eyelids, because these eyes aren't just going to hold on by themselves. So I am exhausted this year, so I'm going to make some really sleepy eyes for my Underbite monster right now. And so I'm going to give it some bags under the eyes. And I'm not just doing one, I'm doing multiples. Now, these parts of the eyes aren't actually going to hold the eyeballs on. They're just going to add a little bit more texture and more layering to the finished piece. So these ones that I'm putting on with the glass beads off to the side, those are just added decorative pieces. Now, I'm going to put the eyes in, make sure they're actually facing the right direction. I've got the highlight of the pupil pointing the same direction. Then I'm going to start adding the eyelids. And these are the pieces that are going to hold the eyes in place. Once I have the bottom lids on, I can add the top lids, and sometimes one lid will do it, and it'll hold the eye onto the face. But these ones, because they're still glass part of the eye exposed, I'm going to add a secondary lid. And again, it just adds a little bit more to the piece. More dimension. More visual sleep deprivation. Alright, you can take a tool, and I just have dowels that I've stuck in a pencil sharpener to use as a simple clay tool to maybe go into the areas that your fingers can't reach. And then everything else, I'm just going to kind of lightly tap it down to make sure it's all adhered to the base layer. Now, you can do one of two things for the teeth. You can either roll out a piece of clay, or you can just shape them by hand. In this case, I want them to be kind of like square block teeth. So I rolled out some thinner sheets of clay, and I'm just going to cut them into a tooth-like shape and start placing them on. I like a pretty aggressive, sloppy underbite. It's just my own personal preference. I think they're adorable. So I'm going to kind of layer the teeth and give it some really, really bad dental appearance, but I think they look hilarious, so I like it. And, you know, who else is telling you what to do than you, so do what you want. And I take the bottom of the teeth and I kind of press them down into the face. I don't want too raised of a section where I'm going to be covering it with the lip. Then I take another piece of clay, roll it into a coil, and place it over the lip, press it down, and then blend downward. You don't want to blend up because that'll cover up the teeth, but you blend down so that it looks like it's part of the face. Smooth that all out, try not to leave too much texture in the surface, and then you're going to cut around the outside edge. I save this part for last so that if I'm doing any blending or shaping or anything with the rest of it, like the lip, I don't end up ruining the new edge that I cut. And I'm just trimming and shaping and refining and just making sure everything fits together nicely and looks good before I go and I take it away. So I'm going to check it out again, clean up my extra area, and I'm going to go stick it in the oven. It's hot, hot, hot. So it stays in the oven for about 20 minutes. The general rule of thumb is you put it in there at 275 for about 15 minutes per 1/4 inch. So I usually keep it in at about 20. So I'm painting with acrylic paint. And acrylic paint is basically the best tool for the job. And I'm not trying to be really neat about this because I'm going to be doing a textural dry brushing over the top. I don't have to get a smooth paint finish. I actually want it to be a little bit rough. So I'm actually painting when the piece is still warm too, so it's helping the paint dry pretty quickly. And I'm just going all over the front and around the outer edges. And once it starts to dry, I can put more layers on and just going around the outer edges again. Now, if you want to, and if you're patient, you can actually paint the back, but that would mean that I wouldn't be able to do anything on the front for a while, so I left the back clean. Now I'm going to be adding some of the layers. So I like layers and I like variety of colors. So I grabbed some white paint out of another container and I'm just mixing it up a little bit with the blue to give me a lighter shade of blue. So I'm just going right over top of the darker blue onto kind of the areas that I can reach easily. You don't have to worry about painting the entire thing. You can leave some of those darker areas dark. But I'm just going over most of it, and because it's a lighter color, it actually makes it look like it has better coverage because you can't see the white through a lighter color as much as you can see the white through a darker color. So I've mixed in a little bit more white, and I'm just adding some more of that lighter detail over the piece. Now, this is when we get into the dry brushing. Dry brushing is when you load up your brush, wipe almost all of the excess away, and then you just lightly touch the surface area of whatever those high points are. In my case, the tops of the lips and the high points of the eyelids. And now I'm going around the corners. So there's barely any paint on my brush, which is why it's not covering it completely. It's just giving that textural effect. So I really like doing this. I think it adds a lot of detail to the area you might not have otherwise seen. And then this is another reason why I was a little bit sloppy on the first couple coats, is because that added more texture to the piece. So I'm going to go in a couple different stages, so I'll keep adding a little bit more white to the paint, and I'll keep adding more to my dry brushing. And you can really see how it's starting to sort of come alive, and you can really see the dimension of the piece. So a little bit more white added in, and now I'm really just going over those high points of the eyelids. And because the eyes are glass, you don't have to worry about painting over them because you'll be able to scrape them away. All the paint right off the glass. You can just take a knife, and you'll see that later on. I'm trying not to paint too much of the teeth, but obviously with the dry brushing, it's not a precise art. It's kind of a process where everything gets messy when you're doing this. So I make sure I clean my brush, and now I'm going to start in with the teeth. Now, I don't always keep my teeth a perfect white because, I mean, what teeth are perfect white, honestly, unless they're fake? So I'm going to add a little bit of green to it, keep with my cool color theme, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go over with a really pale green and then an even lighter green to do a little bit of dry brushing to go in with the edges. I'm taking a little tool again and cleaning up any of the excess. And now it's time, hopefully, because I've let it dry long enough, to clean the eyeballs. And this is honestly one of my favorite parts, is when I get to clean the eyeballs, because it just kind of brings the whole thing together, and now I know that it's, yay, almost finished. Woo. And I just have an X-Acto knife that I'm going in and trying to clean up all the edges. Be really careful that you're not scratching into the clay, because you still can accidentally cut the clay. and then you might have to go back and retouch it or repaint it. So just only hit the glass, but it should clear away all of the paint off of the glass. If you can't get all of it off, like you're having trouble and there's still some paint residue, you can take a wet paintbrush, just really, really lightly dampened paintbrush, and clean off the excess. Now I've stuck some CA glue in a little puddle on the back again, and put a string to attach. And I made sure that the string was long enough that I could just slip it over my neck instead of having to have a clasp on it. This makes it really easy. And I just sprayed some accelerator on the back, and there you have it. Finished, beautiful necklace for you to wear around, impress all of your friends, show off your perfect artistic skills, wear it out, creep out your fiance or your husband or wife or children. But yeah, have fun, enjoy. This is a really fun project, and let me know what you think. Bye!